must eat beans. I know if you are to respond to me, your answer would be today, yesterday, or a few days back. Beans are eaten almost daily by Ugandan households. However, bean production is constrained by several factors, and among these are bean root rots, which are currently one of the biggest diseases of beans. Just imagine this. A farmer in your village has planted an acre of beans, and she's expecting to harvest 10 bags. But then her garden is hit by bean root rots. She only harvests 3 bags. That is how devastating the bean root rots can be. In 2008, I got a job as the bean doctor at the National Agricultural Research Organization in Namlonge. I was excited because I knew I was going to practice science after my PhD. However, my excitement did not last long because I soon realized I had no resources to start any activities. I soon started to wonder if I was in the right place. And this went on for 3 years. But I was determined to make this change. So in 2011, a colleague walked into my office with a call for grant proposals from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, DFID, and the British Biological Sciences Research Council. And this call was targeting young African scientists that had novel ideas that would solve a problem faced by smallholder farmers in Africa. After looking at this call, I realized I was perfect for this call. And after all, I had a novel idea. In an earlier survey in 2009 and 2010, we had observed in farmers' fields that beans were wilting. So many beans were wilting, drying and dying away, leaving patches in the garden. And this disease was what I would say beautiful because it had this white mycelia, silky, something like cotton, and something like beads, brown and beautiful. But then, that is dangerous because when rain comes, these structures are carried to the next field, from one field to another. So this disease was spreading from garden to garden. Then I realized this is the problem I am going to solve. However, at that time, I had a condition. I was 8 months pregnant. And for mothers who are watching me right now, you know what it means to be 8 months pregnant. But I was not going to let this stop me. So I quickly put on my resilience shoe, which I think is always very close to me. I marched forwards, never to look back. So I put together a team of scientists that I was going to work with, and we started writing the proposal. In April, we submitted the first document of the proposal, for the proposal was in 2 phases. And the following month, which was May, I went and had my baby. And this baby, we named him Jonathan. 5 weeks after Jonathan was delivered, as I was enjoying motherhood with no worries at all, I received communication from the donors that our proposal was successful. However, now the project leader had to travel to UK to be trained in how to develop the next stage of the proposal. I was very excited. I screamed because that was the news I had always wanted. And I knew I was now closer to my dream of getting a grant to do what I've always wanted to do. The kids wondered what was wrong with me, but I told them there's nothing wrong. I'm only happy. But suddenly, I looked at sweet little Jonathan. I'm like, how am I going to even go with this baby to UK, only 5 weeks old, and I had never been to UK. I'd been to South Africa, the farthest. So my heart sank. But after talking with my husband, we agreed that I could go with Jonathan. So I was excited that he had accepted for me to travel with the baby. So I quickly sent an email to the donors saying that I would like to come, but this is my condition. I have a baby whom I cannot leave behind. I must come with the baby. And then their reply was, unfortunately, we don't have a policy that supports mothers traveling with babies. That news was very devastating to me. After my husband saw how distressed I was, for he had really known how much this opportunity meant to me, he decided, I am going to finance your travel with Jonathan to the UK. So you informed organizers that you can take care of Jonathan. I was very happy because my husband has always been very supportive of my career. So I quickly sent an email again telling them, now I am able to take care of Jonathan's course and we are coming. So I think my determination moved the organizers so much that the following day I received an email. Surprisingly, I wasn't expecting it, saying that we are going to cover all costs associated with Jonathan's travel to UK, and we are even going to get a nanny to look after Jonathan as you do the training. That was unbelievable because I didn't expect that from the first response. So, we traveled and we arrived at London Heathrow. My challenges were not yet over. My first time in London, I was met with very long queues at the immigration. Then I was met with very fast-moving trains that didn't care whether you had a baby, luggage, or whatever. Then the immigration officers were asking questions that would even make me feel that this is not my baby. And the baby was so tired and irritable because of 8 hours of flight from Uganda to UK. However, we managed and we reached the hotel. So the training started. I still had issues. I was not trusting this nanny they gave me. I kept moving from the conference room to my hotel room because the nanny was sitting with the baby in the hotel room. So I kept moving up and down. I couldn't settle. I'm like, what if this lady goes away with my baby? But somehow I settled. I finished the week of the training. And then we had 2 more days to go meet our partners. At that time, my partner was in Cambridge University, the one you know. And we had to travel. Again, we moved by train. It was not easy. But fortunately for me, after arriving at Cambridge, I met a professor. I had never seen him before. A professor who was very supportive and understanding. He took Jonathan and I into his office, gave us a corner where we would put Jonathan and work on the proposal. Every now and then he would carry Jonathan if he cried while I was busy on the computer. That was simply amazing. After 10 days of adventure in the UK, we returned to Uganda. And I must tell you, this trip changed my life forever. And I'm not afraid to say that. If I had not taken this decision to go with Jonathan, I could never have been where I am today. So we returned, I continued to work on the proposal and submitted it. In July 2012 now, proposals take time to get approved. I received communication that our grant was successful. And I must tell you, among 10 grants, only ours was successful. I was very excited. However, that was short-lived because I realized now we had to start doing what we had promised to do. The first thing we had to do then was to validate what we had claimed. We said the bean root rot is a major disease of beans in Uganda and is rampant, but we had just said that. So we needed to now validate that. So what we did was to carry out a survey in bean growing regions of Uganda. We went to almost 3/4 of the districts of Uganda, and indeed we confirmed that this disease was very rampant and farmers were suffering. But farmers had nothing to do about this disease still, as we had observed earlier. Then we returned to Namlonge after the surveys, and we set out to do what we had promised to do in our proposal, which is develop a bean that will be resistant to the root rot. And readers out there know that this follows a well-designed set of protocols. After the surveys, we then had to characterize the pathogen. You can liken this to how people were talking about the COVID, the virus, that the Ugandan strain is not strong. That's why we were not dying in the beginning. The Kenyan strain is stronger. So we needed to know that about our organism. So we collected several of them and we characterized them to know which ones are really strong and which ones are not. And then from there, we needed to screen as many bean varieties as we can to identify if only even one variety that would be resistant to Sclerosium root rot. So while doing this, it took us almost 2 years. It's not an easy task. We collected over 500, actually more than 500 beans, most of them internationally through a research NGO in Kawanda, but we also have local bean varieties that we used. So we started screening these beans in the screen house at Namlonge, inoculating each one of them with Sclerosium pathogen. We used tons and tons of soil, hundreds of trays, and each of these trays is 20 kilograms. This was not easy. And we physically evaluated one by one thousands of plants. But this was not giving us what we wanted. As the project leader, I had in my mind a picture, a wonderful picture of what I wanted to see, which was I would walk into my screen house and look at trays. We always had over 35 at a go, 35 to 50. I would see these trays, and in them, there would be wilting plants. Maybe you have seen some in the pictures behind me. Several of them wilting, but then you would see this one variety that would be standing and growing while others fell off. But this image was not coming. For almost 2 years, we almost gave up. And if we didn't see this image, that means our project would have ended there. So this was not a nice thing for a scientist, things not working out. But fortunately for us, in one of the experiments we set up towards the end, there were 3 varieties. We didn't know how they would react, but we planted them. So we started our evaluations, germination. These varieties germinated so well, Out of 20 planted, 20 germinated. And this was very rare with this disease. So we were excited. Something was beginning to happen. So we kept going in the screen house, even sometimes twice daily, because we had to make sure that things were not turning the other way. So these beans started, they were growing well, they kept growing, and our excitement was growing as we took pictures over pictures because the image we wanted was now coming up. And luckily for us, on the 28th day of planting, which normally would be the last day of assessment, these plants were still doing as we expected. More than 90% of them had not died of this disease, and they were still standing. This was nice, but was it? For science, you cannot celebrate yet. It might have been chance. So we needed to confirm, indeed, what we are seeing is what we want to see. So we repeatedly planted these varieties and infected them, but they still behaved the same. And finally, it dawned on us that we had found what we were looking for. We were very excited. We had done it. For the first time, we had identified 3 bean varieties that were resistant to Sclerostium root rot. As I said, you achieve one, you think of the next. Then we realized, oh, but these varieties, if we send them to the farmers like this, they will never take them because they are small-seeded and they are red in color. The Ugandan consumer wants their bean yellow, mostly large-seeded, yellow, speckled, the one they call nuds. I'm sure you've seen that in the markets. And then they want it white, they want it black, but these beans were not. So then we needed to do something to transfer this good character we had seen in this not much liked bean into our liked bean. And we knew we could do this through plant breeding. So we set out, the team at Namlonge. I'm not a breeder, we have a breeder. So they made their crosses and they gave those offsprings, the babies of that cross, to me to evaluate. That's how you get new varieties. You cross them and then you get offsprings and you develop them into what you would like. So they gave me lines, several of them. We screened them the same way as I told you earlier, planted them, infected them, and evaluated them. And I'm very happy to say that of these, currently, we have stored over 80 lines that we think can be used in efforts to continue with the Sclerostium root rot breeding work. And these are stored at NACRI and SIAT. So, we hadn't yet developed a variety to take to the farmers, of course. We had found a resistance, but no variety. But funds were over. The project ended. After some time, late last year, I received communication from the funder that actually they were asking me, are you interested in continuing with the work to develop beans resistant to Sclerostium root rot? I read this email, I read it again, I don't know how many times I read it. I even gave it to my colleague, please, is this true? So he told me, yes, I think they want to give you money to continue with your work. I was very excited. In my response, I said, yes, I would like to continue with this work. So right now we're in the process of granting. But at the end of our project, we shall have developed novel resources never developed before for Sclerostium root rot breeding. And these will be useful not only in Uganda, but all bean growing regions of the world. Secondly, we shall have developed a variety that is resistant to Sclerotium root rot. And hopefully, our farmers will be able to adopt this and grow it. Last but not least, we shall have trained a Ugandan scientist in next generation breeding technologies that are currently, very important if you must get varieties very fast. Thank you.